There's no life that's bigger than another. But so much of what we have been taught is, okay, if you do this, if you do that, you won't get arrested. You won't be imprisoned. You won't get shot. And that's a very difficult thing to shake. Because once you shake it, you realize we are all in the same pot. In the diaspora, we are struggling everywhere we exist. In the U.S., I keep on looking at the numbers. We are about 46 million black people in the U.S., and that is, by itself, bigger than about 200 countries. Like, we are a country in and of ourselves. If we include the diaspora, we could be powerful, but there's so much at stake. We are struggling, and though I can see it and do it intellectually, I know that a lot of people that I interact with will really easily dismiss any black person with a foreign accent and say, that's not my struggle. I got so much, you from somewhere else. But, how do you deal with it?
Yes, come on.
Thank you.
Come on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think they was waiting for you.
Yeah.
Do you need that microphone?
Just to say, well, I mean, for those who don't know, I have a show on YouTube. And thank everybody who came out for that. But I'm trying to say this in as polite as a way as I can.
No.
And I'm not saying that we are all not oppressed. I'm just saying that we're not all the same. And I think there has to be some allowance for a distinction, right? Like I don't think you can view what it means to be African American as whether or not you can hail a cab. That's how Obama got us. Well, I have a hard time catching a cab. That's not it. And I'm going to say something, and some people will be upset, and that's my life. but what Obama was, there was so much of who he was that was created by white people. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? He had a white grandfather who had a white grandfather who got him into a private school, who called it in for a friend. So what I'm saying, we are African Americans, we're descendants of slaves in this country, and we, if you live in Nigeria, you might get beat up by a Nigerian cop. We live as a minority next to a majority that enslaved us. So what I like to have, I think we need to have some space to distinguish ourselves. Now that doesn't mean that we can't, and this is something I say, it doesn't mean I can't be an ally with you, because yeah, we all oppress people, and when you find black people all over the world, they're oppressed. We can have some kind of allyship, but I don't want to erase the distinction that we have as African Americans and our specific claim, because of our labor in this country, our specific claim to the wealth in the richest country that the world has ever known. And so that's where I kind of push back against that a little bit, because I see, I went to Howard University. There were times, one of my good friends while I was there was a Nigerian, but his father was a minister in government, or had been. He schooled in London, right? So, the question I would ask is, he has money. His parents paid in cash. Is it fair for him to have access to that affirmative action? Okay, that's a question that I would ask you. Is it fair for him to be able to access that, as opposed to a kid from Southside Chicago, as opposed from somebody in Swats, Atlanta, a black kid there? Is that a fair thing? And what I find, it's a very interesting interview Sandy Darity of Duke did, and he said something to this, there are some African immigrants who are a little bit more docile, and so they're coming here to get their education, not coming here to protest about black people being hired and things of that nature. And so he said, I've talked to people in the missions who said, yeah, they kind of bring them in because they're trying to do that. There is a lot of nuance in terms of being black people. One of the things we have to understand, no matter where you come from, is that white capital is using you to manipulate each other.
Yes.
And saying this is just the same, and they're moving us around. So I would want us to understand that distinction and difference. It doesn't mean we can't work together, but I tend to resist this, anything that makes us all, that views us all as the same without distinction. Because I'm sure you have a distinction if you're Haitian. If you people talk about, well, Yvette, we've all been oppressed and we all went through stuff and well, listen, if you're Haitian and France decides to pay reparations to Haitians, I'm not gonna come over there and say, that's my check. It ain't. I'm gonna say, good for you. You finally got them to pay you back for everything they stole. I hope I'm next. That's what I'm gonna say. So I think we all have our struggles and we can all do our own thing and we can all work together, but I'm gonna push back. I just push back a little bit.
We get to say that one day.
Yeah.